What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Dolphins Daily with your boy Chris Kane. And we're giving you more Dolphins content because that's what we do here. That's what we do. So, some of you may have watched the news today. Former Texans OC, former now, Bobby Slowik got fired today, which is crazy because literally a year ago, it was like him and Ben Johnson, two best young OCs. What's going to happen? Neither of them took a job, which is kind of wild. Ben Johnson just got hired by the Bears. And Bobby was like, I got young CJ Stroud. We went to the second round of the playoffs my rookie year with him. Let's just keep rolling because maybe next year we can, go all the way. And when you're an OC, you want a great quarterback. That's what makes you look good. When you don't have a good quarterback, I don't care how good your plays are, right? So Bobby decided to stay. We assumed CJ would take, a giant leap this year. And I don't know what happened with the offensive line, but it was a disaster this year for Houston. They was getting that boy hit like Derek Carr, man. Or David Carr. Even worse. Derek Carr early on too, but David Carr for sure. So the offense took a major step back. I think it's mostly because of the offensive line. Then Stephon Diggs got hurt. Then Tank Dell got hurt. And also Nico Collins missed like 4 games. I mean, this was an absolute disaster on offense. I don't know. Maybe they didn't want him in the building. Um, the yards per play calling was a little dicey, but I think that's also bad O line, bad skill guys in terms of their injuries. No matter how you cut it, Bobby got fired. And, there's people already waiting to call. Like, Tampa Bay is like, hey, we just lost our coach to the Jaguars. We make a phone call, whatever, whatever. But he's emerged as an option for the Dolphins for a number of reasons. One, his brother works for the Dolphins. Ryan is a DB coach currently. And, it's cool to have family. It's like, hey, man, tell your boss, holla at your little bro. You know what I'm saying? Let him know I'm over here, right? So he already works for the team. He's also worked with Mike McDaniel before for a few years, right? So he knows Mike's system. His brother is currently working there. And, we need a wide receivers coach. I think Nico Collins is a dude, but Nico Collins was not a dude when he went to Houston. And so if he had anything to do with the way he schemes open Nico, because everybody knows once Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs got hurt, the ball is going to Nico Collins. And yet somehow he was still getting open. They didn't have all these options. So if this is just him scheming things open, Joe Mixon, people thought was kind of washed. He's had 2 good years back to back. So, he's shown that he has some offensive capabilities. Again, this year things went really far backwards, but that's because the old line, I think, mostly wasn't good. I don't believe CJ took a sophomore slump. I know the numbers say he did. ESPN is telling you that's what happened. When I watched him, especially in the playoffs, I saw him overcoming basically no protection, running way more than he wanted to, getting hit, being injured. Like I saw a dude. And I think Bobby, I don't believe he just became a bad offensive mind overnight. Maybe teams figured out his scheme. He needs to re-scheme it. But the bottom line is he's now on the market. I assume a handful of teams are going to come after him. But I think the Dolphins have an inside track because you got coach experience, you got sibling experience. We have a vacancy. It's a job where the offense should be good next year because we should be good. Plenty of talent. And so if the receivers take a step up next year, then I think he'll be in the next hiring cycle because, listen, this is a lesson to be learned with Bobby Slowik. Timing is everything. Timing is everything. Last year, he probably could have got 2 or 3 jobs. Just just walked in there. Hey, you want a job? Yeah. Like Carolina's job that Canales has, he could have probably got that job. Like maybe a job like Arizona. Like there was jobs to be had that he said, nah. Now Ben Johnson did it and it worked out, so it's fine. But I always think of like Cardell Jones. Some of y'all may remember him from Ohio State back in the day. Like when he left, he was super raw, but his stock was super high because he just won a championship. And he didn't pan out the way he should have. But had he gone back to school for a year, could he have gotten better and gotten drafted higher? Maybe. But he said, the iron is hot, I'm going. Byron Leftwich did the exact same thing. Byron Leftwich was the OC for Tampa when Tom Brady was there. He won a Super Bowl. People are like, yo, Byron, you want to be, the coach? The Jaguars said they wanted him to be a coach, but the Jaguars were doing some funny stuff with assistant coaches and all that stuff. And he said, no, I'm just going to stay in Tampa. I'm going to be good. And they said, all right, cool. And that was the last time you heard of him really in a coaching search. He's done interviews, but those feel like Rooney interviews. No one's considered him to be a coach. But that year, he was hot. And, Bobby may have to rebuild his image the way like Sarkisian had to the way that Lane Kiffin had to, where you get up here and you kind of come down and you got to rebuild it back up. But I don't know. I think if he comes on, I think he'll be great. He's young. I think he's hungry to get back to like an OC role and ultimately to a head coaching role. And so we'll see what happens. Now, if you're watching, how football is now, we have the last 4 teams playing in the league this Sunday. Outside of the Commanders, the other 3 are great in the trenches. The trenches meaning offensive line, defensive line. And Baltimore is also good on both lines, but they're just lesser than the 3 that are left. Kansas City's offensive line is fantastic. But what happened is, some of you remember this, when they played Tampa and Tom Brady in that Super Bowl, the O-line was decimated. Tackles were hurt. Guys were out of position. That's when Mahomes did that throw where he was falling down and threw the ball to the end zone. It wasn't like Mahomes was just trying to be Superman. It was almost every snap, it felt like somebody was coming through free because they just couldn't protect them. And the Chiefs were like, hey, if we can keep this guy upright, we can win. And they went and got Tooney, Humphrey. Like, they just went and rebuilt the line over 1 year. We're going to draft this guy, pick up free agent, draft this guy. And now they have 3 Pro Bowlers on the whole line. Like, you can do that. Buffalo, from Dawkins to the rest of those guys, they just got him. And the reason Josh Allen was the least sacked guy this year. So people are like, oh, Buffalo doesn't have a good offense. I'm like, yeah, but if Josh Allen's standing still, not being touched the whole game, he's just going to throw to guys that are open or he's going to run. There's no urgency for him. He's back there patting the rock that he's not being touched. You look at Philadelphia, Saquon Barkley has been very good his whole career when he's played. He's been hurt a lot. They put Saquon behind his offensive line, and he immediately runs for 2,000 yards. Like, yes, Saquon's a dude, but when they showed that referee viewpoint of what Saquon was running behind, listen, man, I feel like, this is blasphemy. I feel like behind the Eagles O-line, I can get you 45, maybe 50 yards. I may not break the 80-yard run, but when Mekhi Becton is throwing a dude out of the hole and you can literally see just green, I can scoop, and then I got to fall down. I don't want to get hit, but I can get 5. All right, that's all I'm trying to say. I can get 5. A couple carries, I might throw my hip out, but I'm just saying the line is so good that they just dominate in the trenches. Then you get guys like Jalen Carter on the D-line. They're great in the trenches. Miami is not good in the trenches, and it's because we've built our team from the outside in, which I think people thought might be the trend, kind of how the NBA is like all 3-point shooters and no big guys anymore. I think we kind of try to like skip ahead, but ultimately this is a game of big people hitting big people. Like, if your quarterback doesn't have time to throw, it doesn't matter how good your receiver is. If your running back doesn't have a hole to run through, yes, he can do like a David Montgomery sometimes where he kind of makes his own hole, but most of the time, Detroit's own line is running through people. Like, Penei Sewell and them boys are getting people out of here. Jahmyr Gibbs is running free through lines. And then, yes, you can maybe make a 2-yard additional finish to the run. Miami has not dedicated resources to a high degree. Austin Jackson and Armstead, of course. But the interior O-line, not good. And part of that was letting Robert Hunt go. Part of it was cap constraints in other places. But when you're not good in the trenches, you can't run the ball. You can't protect your quarterback. And then you also don't stop other teams from running the ball. And so you're losing the man advantage, which is football, just the man. Like, when you can physically dominate people, then it just allows you to have so much freedom. Now play action gets involved, or you force a team to be one-dimensional. If you can stop the run, and now let's say you can stop the run with 4, maybe 5. Now you can play exotic coverages. You can send blitzes. It changes the whole defense. But when you can't stop the run, it does not matter what your defense can do, because teams will just hand off. And we've seen Philly have 12-minute drives because teams can't get off the field. And it's like, man, I can't get Mailata off of me. And it's like, no, we're just going to drive the ball down your throat. And so this offseason, a lot of decisions to be made on the offensive line. A lot of guys about to be free agents. And the question is, do you just draft and develop? Do you try to get a middle tier free agent? The bottom line is, it doesn't matter how good our receivers and quarterback are. It doesn't matter how good our DBs are. If the D-line's not doing their job, the DBs are hung out to dry. If the O-line's not blocking, quarterback, running back can't do their job. So I think this offseason, it might be time to reinvest into the trenches. We'll see. Final story. We always talk about the backup quarterback for the Dolphins because It's a thing. I mean, a quarterback is hurt. And, we floated some big names out there. I've been saying Flacco for a long time just because Flacco throws deep so easily. But what might emerge is like a cheaper option, and maybe we draft another quarterback to be like the third option, is Jacoby Brissett. We've seen him with the Patriots. Jacoby, he's not good. Let's just, he's not good. But he's not awful, right? Like, if Jacoby came in, let's say it's the third quarter, Dolphins are down 13-10, and Jacoby came in the game, he could possibly win that game. He will not bring you back from 13 to zip. He definitely will bring you back for more than that. So, like, there's a line where it's like he can keep the ship going. He has been remarkably durable for somebody who's not super athletic. He's a big dude, but he's been super durable. He's obviously a good, like, locker room dude because he's been on a bunch of teams as backups. And he doesn't mind his position of, I know I'm not the guy. I'm just holding the spot for the guy. Like, I'm good coming in, spot duty. Let me stay on the sideline, collect my checks. Like, he seems comfortable in that role. Sometimes you get a backup quarterback who really wants to be the starter, and it's like this weird friction where it's like you feel like they're just like, hey, you still want to play? Like, they kind of like looking over your shoulder. Jacoby's like, hey, dog, if I don't play or play one game, we Gucci. And he probably won't be expensive, which I think is, again, we keep talking about cap and stuff, but if you want to rebuild the trenches, those positions are expensive, either with draft capital or actual money. So but you need a good backup. So if you get a backup that can hold the fort, and then we can allocate $5 million more to an offensive lineman, and maybe we can outbid a team like Cincinnati, who also needs O-linemen this offseason, or a team like Chicago, who's been trying to get O-line together for the better part of 20 years. Money counts, performance counts, and again, this would also, I don't know if it'll hurt the Patriots, because if Joe Milton's their backup, that actually is kind of scarier to me than Jacoby. But Joe Milton might get traded. We'll see. There's some whispers out there that he may not be on that team for long. But I think Jacoby would be a solid backup. He wouldn't be my first choice. He might be choice 2 or 3. But if he's out there and he's saying, 1 year, $5 million kind of thing, I think it's worth it. But let me know in the comment section. As always, thank y'all for tuning in. We enjoy doing these. We're giving y'all content every day. And stay with us. Like, subscribe, share, all that fun stuff. We'll see you next time. Peace.